from the Ticats Audio Network. This is Ticats Today with Louis Butko.
Yes, it is Ticats Today for a Thursday, November the 20th, 2022. Thanks for checking us out on the Ticats Audio Network. Louis Butko here with you as we get even closer to our final show, our penultimate show, which I always love that word, second to last, penultimate show of the season for this Thursday. As, again, we wrap up this season tomorrow, but today we've gotten through all our sound from locker cleanout day. I got no news to tell you about. I thought by now maybe I'd have some CFL All-Star news that I could pass along your way and maybe talk to any Ticats who have been named CFL All-Stars, but we don't have that information yet. Yet to name the League All-Stars. But we'll try to stay on top of that, and hopefully we get it tomorrow or before tomorrow. And who knows? Maybe if we don't, they'll ask me to be back next week to do a little bonus show or bonus shows throughout the off season. Who knows? We'll find that out together. Coming up on today's show, in fact, right now, very pleased to be joined by Ticats Audio Network analyst Luke Tasker. And Luke, you've been on the airwaves already this week. You wrapped up your season of the Coach O Show with Luke Tasker. And I guess let's start there. What were some of the takeaways? Was there one big takeaway that you got out of Coach or something that stuck with you from your final episode of the season?
He's just as humble as a person can be, and not in a way where, somebody tells themselves, hey, I want to be really humble. Yeah. It's really authentic, and he's very, very real about some changes that need to be made. And of course, details were not spoken as far as specific changes that are going to be made, but you can tell from his tone, he's ready to do whatever it's going to take in order to win a Grey Cup. And he kind of said, he mentioned in that last Montreal game, the Eastern semifinal, they didn't play good enough to win. Like, they weren't going to win that game, playing that way. And it certainly wasn't the best that they had played all year. So he's disappointed. And I know, I touched on the fact briefly there because it struck me that I only ever once in my career won the last game of my season. And that happens to be the year that we were the worst and didn't even make the playoffs. But truly, that the end of that year does feel a little different. Even though you're terrible, you didn't even make the playoffs. We started off 0-7 or 0-8, whatever it was, but you did win the last game of the year.
Yeah.
And you did kind of it changes the tone. Every other year, even 15-3, go to the Grey Cup, lose in the Eastern Finals, whatever. You end on a loss, and you end, abruptly. You don't have time to prep for the end of that season. So exit meetings are tough, and but he was authentic and like he always is. I mean, he was great to chat with, and it is from a player's perspective, it's a tough time of year. Like, that you're in there every day with those guys that you really love and respect, and then it's going to end all of a sudden. Everybody just is out of there in a week, and it's tough, and they've got the Ticats have to sort of make some changes as they go forward.
I remember that 2017 season because there was that belief in the room, right? I mean, because you were knocked out of the playoffs probably week 16 or week 17. So that you knew going into that game, it didn't matter. But there was such a belief in that room, and that really set the pedestal for what came in 2019, which set up in 2019, that great 15-3 season. But to that point, those teams looked very different. Going into 2023, Grey Cups in Hamilton, they know what it's going to take to get there. Do you get the sense that this team might look a little different come June, come a training camp next year?
Yeah, I do. I think that they're going to get some veteran presence offensively and receiver wise. I don't know what to expect in the quarterback play, Louis. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. You had good play from Dane and from Matt Schiltz this year. And of course, there was just the whole thing was kind of up in the air at many times as well. So, who knows what to expect there. And I just think when you have a year that underperforms the expectations, there's really no like it just always is the case that things are going to get mixed up from the top down and stuff. And I mean, it would blow my mind if Orlando Steinauer was coaching in a different place than Hamilton next year. I don't think I just don't expect it, but we don't know. We're not privy to these things. But I think Coach O is a great answer for this organization. That would be a shock to me, but who knows what to expect other than that. And it just, so, this is a performance industry. There's just a year like that kind of calls for some change up, whether, and it could come in any place.
Yeah. The sports entertainment business. I mean, coach says it quite often that, they're a results-based business too. So that Ticats Grey Cup drought, I know we don't have to talk about it. I know people who listen to the show are well aware, but another Grey Cup, a full Grey Cup. I think it's going to be huge for this organization next year. Let's go back to that East semifinal, because it was almost a perfect encapsulation of what the Ticats season was, right? Like showing flashes of like that third quarter defensively, and then Matt takes over and has a big drive, but turnovers. I feel like that's how we're going to remember this season.
Yeah, and Coach O touched on that yesterday too. Like it was mind blowing, the turnover ratio, and it quickly shot up to negative 20 in the ratio, this year. And that certainly is the story. I think that it was like you had times where you had quarters where the Ticat offense would drive right down the field, twice in a row. And then you'd have whole quarters or halves where it seemed like first downs were, a rare commodity to have. You kind of had a back and forth all season too, with a lot of position groups. The offensive line finally found some consistency, but running back, quarterback, receiver, constant changes there. I think there were some bright spots. Unfortunately, the special teams for Montreal played really well in that Eastern semifinal. I thought the special teams was a bright point throughout the year for the Ticats, and the kicking game as well. Seth Small was certainly a bright point in the year, and there's some level of consistency and a trustworthiness to make big plays that seems to be missing.
Tim White had a breakout year this year. I think that's safe to say. Stephen Dunbar coming up big in the East semis there last week with a big touchdown. But Braylon Addison is going to be coming off a tough injury. You mentioned that you think they should get some veteran leadership, but where do you see Tim White ceiling after having watched him the last 2 years?
I think he's going to be a really good player in the league. I think he'll continue to excel that way. You think to the final drive win in Calgary. You think to some of the catches he made in the first half of that game in Montreal. He stepped up at big times. It's a great sign of somebody who's going to be a longtime contributor, who understands the game. He was impressive to watch this year. I hope personally that we see more Braylon Addison. I can't speak highly enough about him. Even Tim White, like he's going to be helped by a guy like Braylon if he can continue to perform in his career. Braylon has a very, very special ability, understanding the chains. It's not just that though. It's not just knowing where the chains are and running your route to the correct depth. It's just like doing any way you can, catching and getting to the chains. And it's really, really, it can go unnoticed in a way that when he's out there producing, it just looks like a guy doing his job. But the reality is other people don't do their jobs that way.
Yeah.
And Braylon is that kind of guy. Who knows? It is a tough injury too. So, but Tim White, I would expect the Ticats to want him back desperately, and for him to continue to be a good part of the organization.
What would your advice to him as someone who has been in his shoes, someone who has had success in the CFL early on, and now you're going into year 3? You've learned some things year over year. What would your advice to him as someone who has been literally almost in his shoes.
Yeah. As a young guy coming up in the league, like his physical skill set is not lacking. He is a real playmaker, and he has a world-class physical skill set. You see, as you get further along in your career, you start to see it slows down for you. And my advice would be to really be an excellent student of the CFL game, really identify and understand CFL defenses, and to, sign sort of the classic old, just, keep working hard. I mean, I was at my best when I was, catching jugs machine or I did all kinds of tennis ball things. Like when I was really perfecting the little nuanced trades of a wide receiver, the plays start to come easier to you on the field. And when you have a really, really thorough knowledge of CFL defenses and your own concepts, but that kind of comes first, the knowledge of your own offense comes first, and the knowledge of what you're looking at on the field is sort of the next level. And as those things grow hand in hand, I mean, you really can, and of course, God willing, you're healthy as well. Like then you really can become dominant.
Well, and I remember you talking about those catches that Tim made in that Calgary game, how like those were almost career defining catches, because they're moments where you can say, I've been here, I've done that, I've made that play. And I don't think most people know, he took a shot in that Calgary game. I believe he had some dental work done on the previous play, and then it needed the dental work, I should say, and then still made that play in the end zone. Defensively, Jovan Santos Knox, I have to think, if we're talking about guys who the Ticats should want back next year, he's got to be right up the top of the list. And talking to Coach Washington about it yesterday, earlier this week, he kind of alluded to that he was a leader. When you're the mic, you have the mic. And I feel like Jovan Santos Knox should be at the top of the Ticats list.
Yep. I loved watching him play this year. He's, leading in tackles and makes plays. And, like you said, that mic position is put in a position to make a lot of tackles. It's just the natural, responsibility of that inside of the linebacking core. And he did a great job. I mean, when I think of the Ticat defense, I mean, this was really, they had games where, Trevor Harris in the beginning of the Eastern semifinal really was kind of unstoppable as he threw the ball down the field. And that's going to happen on any defense for spells during games or during a season. But this was an impressive group. Their ability to pressure the quarterback and to defend passes and, of course, defend the run. I loved watching. And so, I think Mark Washington had a really good season. I mean, I think he put his guys in positions to make plays. It's almost, to me, seems like in that category, it's sort of a retention game. How many guys how similar can that lineup look?
Take us back into your playing days. What would this week look like for you after Monday? You have your meetings, you clean your locker out. How do you adjust to postseason life?
It is hard, man. It just is a very abrupt end. I said, you never are expecting it. You're expecting to be prepping for Toronto right now. It's tough. You kind of want to close up loose ends relationally. You want to say thank you to all the people in the training room, and to Drew and the equipment staff, and certainly to your coaches. And you kind of make your rounds in that way. And you got to logistically, you're packing up your locker, you're packing up your apartment. I mean, it's a lot, and it's sort of like, it's sort of not the most fun. We always sort of tended to find time to do one more thing together with the guys, just to, if you're going to, part ways for 6 months or more. And so, you take care of those things, but, such is the nature of football, man. It's part of the reason it's so great and so special is because it doesn't last forever. And so for me, it was a big part was saying, a proper thank you to anybody and everybody who deserved it.
Yeah. It's always a weird day. I've been to many locker cleanouts in my days. There's that last day of school vibe, right? Where, some guys are going off somewhere else. Some guys, like that group of guys, will never be together in that same room, right? And you've battled through so much. And coach talked about this, and everybody who went up on the podium this week has talked about it, is that they didn't turn on each other. And to hear it said again and again and again and again, A, it's true. And B, it puts into perspective how easily in a locker room division can happen and how impressive it is when it doesn't.
It is impressive. And it's kind of it's a testament to the organization top down that, at times, it's hard. You see a group or maybe a position group playing, lights out, like really doing what they need to do to win a championship. And if other areas are struggling, well, it wouldn't be hard to imagine in any group of people, in a business or in a school setting or whatever, that group that's lagging would take some heat. And I was a part of teams where it was like what it seems like this year had, where, it just wasn't what it was about, like you're just as friendly and pleased with those position groups that were struggling, or with the guys that were making mistakes, and you just pick each other up. And it's a more enjoyable experience when you have some empathy and you just love each other and try your best each time, no matter what. And I'm glad to hear that. It seems like, and we never know. I mean, It's hard to see from the outside, but but like you said, so many people have doubled down on that it seems like a trustworthy sentiment, and it's I don't know, it's encouraging to see. It reminds me of a lot of teams that I was on.
You seem to have a few weeks off a little bit earlier than maybe you thought. What's next for Luke Tasker, my guy?
I was helping out at a D3 school here in Buffalo too. Their season's ended now, so I'm kind of cooling down. We're getting ready for American Thanksgiving's coming up, and then Christmas, of course. But I'm in real estate, never sleeps here either, which is my other life. So we're still busy there, but the family's doing great, and we're kind of looking forward to having a slower winter as football kind of goes away.
I get the sense that your dad and I will be sharing Thanksgiving in the same place this year. I'm heading down to Detroit for the Bills game, so
cool.
I assume Mr. Tasker will be there for the game. Anyway, I just hopefully we'll cross paths. Who knows?
That's great.
But man, I appreciate you connecting all season long. We didn't get to see each other as much as we did the previous season, but
you're too remote, man. We haven't. I feel like I've only seen you in person maybe a handful of times this year.
Hey, but every time we did, though, it was special. And just like these chats, man, appreciate you. I appreciate you doing this, and have a great off season.
Thanks, Louis. Talk to you.
And my thanks to Luke Tasker for joining me today and all season long. And my thanks to you as well. That'll do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow to say goodbye on the season, to close the book, to write the final chapter. We'll do it here tomorrow on Ticats Today on the Ticats Audio Network. I'm Louis Butko, hoping you have a great day.
Ticats Today can be heard every weekday, and we would like to hear from you. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Have a question or an opinion? We want to hear it. That's gameday@ticats.ca. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.